Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Board Game Specialist. I am Melanie.
And I'm Carla.
And this week, we are doing our top 9 games that we would recommend to replace Monopoly, or instead of Monopoly. This was a really interesting list to put together. How did you find this one for you, Carla?
Yeah, I found it quite easy because a lot of games, when I had acquired them and played them, I thought, oh yeah, this is what I would pull out like with the kids instead of Monopoly, or show them hoping that they'd prefer this over Monopoly kind of thing. So I had, most of my list already in my head kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I've played Monopoly a lot growing up. It was definitely like a go-to game. And what's great with Monopoly, I mean, like everybody knows Monopoly. So for new people coming into the hobby, and it was like, oh, well, let's play Monopoly. It's like, well, let me introduce you to something a little different. And this is where, like, this list would come in. Now, like, I mean, there's so many different Monopoly. I remember with the kids, we used to play Monsteropoly all the time.
Oh.
It was, like, kind of a younger, it was Monopoly, but it was, like, monsters. And then they had a bunch of, like, monster jokes in it.
Oh, like puns?
Yeah, stuff. And then, like, little dad jokes, but, like, all monster-related, the whole thing. So it wasn't horrible, and I love the joke stuff, and then the kids were into it, but it's just, there's so much better out there.
Yeah, no kidding. So much better. And I mean, really, if we played Monopoly by its rules, it wouldn't be a game that takes forever. But we've all developed our own house rules with,
like the
put money on free parking, because that's not a rule. So you're just always getting money, and you have all this money to do stuff when typically you don't. It's quite a tight money game, but we play it, and then I think we added money some other places too or something.
Oh, there's a whole controversial behind Monopoly as well. Because it was originally created under a different name by a lady.
Yes, a female created it and then sold it off cheap. I mean, back then it was a decent amount, but, if she would have knew now.
Right.
But they kind of did it shady, like it was a shady deal.
I think it was a shady deal. Like, I haven't looked into it, and we should have looked into it before this episode, I guess.
It a long time.
Oh, did you?
A while ago? Not before this, not for this episode. Like a while ago, I was just like, I think I was looking at videos on games better than Monopoly, like, months and months ago. And then this came up about it, and but now I can't remember what the whole actual story behind it was, but it was something like, almost like they stole it from her, but not quite. But
they legally stole it from her, or
I don't think it was.
We'll have to look into that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look that up and figure it out for next time. But
sounds good.
A lady developed it. Pretty cool.
Now, do you anticipate any crossovers?
I think we might have some, actually.
Okay,
maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah. Because me and you, we don't oftenly have crossovers.
No, we don't. Sometimes we'll get one, the odd time. But not, I think maybe 1, I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. Maybe 2. Yeah.
Sounds good. We'll look into it.
Do you think there's any? Like, are you?
You know what? I'm thinking like maybe 1, maybe 2. It depends on how. Yeah, I don't know.
Because one I know you really like, but whether you picked it for this list or not.
For this Monopoly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It kind of depends on how you viewed it. Like, some of the stuff is like, well, if you like this aspect of Monopoly, this would be a good fit. Or if this is the aspect you like, then this might be a good fit, right? I kind of went more that approach as well. Yeah. So we'll have to see what matches up. Perfect. So before we get into that, what have you been playing lately?
So I got a couple new games finally to the table. I've had this for a while, and this is Splendor Duel.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not like a huge fan of Splendor. Like, it's a really good gateway game, but I keep it in my collection for that. And I always seem to buy it at thrift stores for my friends because it's always there. I always get a $5 game of Splendor. So I'll grab one and then like, here, everyone's got to own this game because and they usually really love it, especially like my non-gamer friends that will play games. They're like, oh yeah, this is really neat. So I've heard so much about the Splendor Duel and how it's better than the main game, other than that you can only play it with 2, but it was worth me checking it out. And so it is really good, actually. It's the same game, except how you draft tiles, and then there's a bit more abilities to the game, where you have this board with all the gems on it, and instead of just drawing them from stacks, you have to draw them from the board, and you have to draw up to 3 in a row. And they can be any gems except gold. You can't take gold off the board. Gold can only be taken if you're reserving a card, just like in the base game, the main game. But now if you take 3 tiles that are the same, then your opponent gets to take a scroll, and the scroll gives them an ability. And there's only 3 scrolls in the game, and so if there's no scrolls left to take, you take it from the other player. And if you have all the scrolls, you just don't get another one. Another thing is if you take 2 pearls, because that's a new gem now, and it's not a wild gem, it's used differently, like it's used to still build cards and whatnot, but if you take 2 of those, you also will get to take, your opponent will take a scroll. The other thing you can do is reset the board, and then your other opponent will get a scroll. But resetting it is done, it's kind of cool because you do it in a spiral. So you start in the middle, and you'll pull out of the bag. Like all the gems that you used always go straight back into the bag, and then when you reset the board, you'll pull out of the bag and start in the middle and spiral outwards. You'll never fill the board again, because chances are you're always going to have at least some gems, each of you, and there's just enough gems for the full board. So if you have a few, then you're not filling it, but gives you more options on what to take. Now, some of the cards that you build have abilities on them. So it'll let you steal a gem from somebody. It'll let you take another turn or take a gem from the board, all kinds of different things. There's different ways of winning, not just the points on the card where you need 20 points in order to win. You could also win by collecting crowns. So some of the cards have crowns on them. So if you can collect 10 crowns on your tableau, then you win the game. I think that's how I won, was the crowns. So I didn't get to 20 points, but I did get enough crowns to win. And there's another way to win if you have one color of gems and you have 10 points in that one stack. So in the base game, I think it was 15 it went up to, I think, that you would have to win. But this one gives you 3 different ways to win. And then you have these, like they had the Royals in the first game, I think they were called. They have 4 cards at the top that once you get a few crowns, you get to grab one, and it has points on it and an ability. So it's just like, it's an engine builder just like the first one, but it adds a little bit more, and it's quite interesting. It's really cool. So I recommend that one, especially if you need some new 2-player games. I just filled my 2-player shelf, so I don't know what I'm going to do now. Do I just build another shelf? Because I can't fit anything else in there. Anyway, okay, my second game is called Akropolis. Now, this is a tile-laying game, very simple tile-laying game that I've had from Christmas. Just got it.
Oh, nice, yeah.
But it is so cool. It's these hexagon polyomino shapes. So they're like a bunch of hexagons attached together. And you start with one that is kind of like it's like a prong. Everyone starts with the same one. And then all the other ones are like, they have 3 hexagons together. So you just are drafting one of these tiles and putting it onto your city. And it's just like how you draw in Century Spice Road. The first one is free. The second one, you have to add a stone. Third one, so on. Now, on these tiles, you have different types of terrain, or buildings, I should say. So you could have these quarries, which do nothing for you unless you build on top of them. They'll give you more stone, which is the currency in order to get the tiles, right? You'll have different types of markets and houses. And depending how, some of them want to be together connected, some want to be isolated, some of them want to be on the outside of the whole tableau. And if you layer them, the more that you get, the higher up you get, the more points they're worth. So the first one on the base layer is worth 1, and if you can stack them up to the 3rd level, it's 3. Then you also have these things, now I'm escaping, the name is escaping me, but it will be a color of the type of market or house that you have. That will be a multiplier. and it has stars on it. So if I have 3 stars, 3, say, purple stars, and I've built all these different purple buildings and have connected them the way they want to be connected, that will multiply them. So if I have 1 purple on the bottom, and then I have 1 on the second floor and 1 on the third floor, that would be, the third one would be 3, the 2 would be 2, and the 1 would be 1, so that would be 6 points. And then if I have a multiplier of 3, I'd have 18 points. So you can go really hard on like one type of thing if you can get them. I've only played a 2-player game of this, so it'll be a little bit more interesting with more, because it's going to be tighter and harder to get, build up one type of building. But I went hard on one building and I thought, oh wow, I got 65 points on that one. Sweet. Well, I should have probably had a backup and went, took something else into effect, because I played with Cherry and she had kind of gone 2 ways, not as hard as I did, but it overpowered me, and I think she beat me by 30 points or something. So that is not the strategy to go. You need at least 2 different ways to go, but it was so fun, and literally a 20-minute game. Like I could have easily played that twice more, just to, and, and it's just still feels so crunchy and satisfying, especially if you're a tile layer lover like myself. But I was so happy that it had been talked about so much and people loved it, and I'm like, it just looks so simple, and I don't know, is it going to be fun? It was totally fun.
Oh, good.
So what about you? What have you been playing?
So me and Lee finally got Décorum to the table.
Yeah.
And I bought it last summer, and because it was like the rage, everybody was talking about summer, it. Yeah, I bought it. This is how you get so many games on your shelf of shame.
True.
So I acquired very quick, very easily, but getting it to the table. But I was just like, okay, this is one that I think would be really cool to play with Lee. But then I was like,
you were worried.
I don't know if he'll like it. There's some that I think he'll like and doesn't. And so anyway, so we played this one. And this one is really interesting because you got all these different scenarios. So there's 20 some scenarios for the 2-player version. And then there's other ones. Yeah. But so you pull out this envelope. So you have envelope 1. There's 3 cards in it. One of them is like the setup, how the house is set up originally. There's 4 rooms. Each room will have like a wall color. And then you can add a lamp and a wall hanging and a curio. And each one can be like a different color, a different style. So there's all these different things that can go. And then the house starts a certain way. And there's a little story behind it. It's like, oh, you guys are becoming roommate and whatever. Or you're a couple, or you're like, there's different scenario, or your mother-daughter living together. And then there's the 2 other cards, and each of you gets one. And there's a list of rules on there of what your character wants in their house. It says, like, it could be like, you do not want a lamp and a wall hanging in the same room. That's too much. Or it's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, and, if you have a blue element, then you don't want a yellow element there, or different things like that. I'm just making stuff up. So there's a list of criterias that, as the character, you want in the house. And there's a list of criteria that Lee has as well. And you take turn, because on your turn you can either remove an element, add one, or swap one out. So be like, well, I see the blue wall here, but wouldn't it be better in yellow? So then you put the yellow, and then the other player could easily say, like, I hate it. Or, oh, I love it. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. Right? Like, and then it's kind of like giving it things like, and then you're playing, is like, oh my God, I hate it. I was like, why? It's like, it's hideous. It's like, that's not staying. Oh, it's like, and it's like, okay, well, what's on his? It's missing with this. Like, and then so you keep going. And you're trying to get to the point where every criteria is matched. But there, like, as you go along, there'll be some where you can have heart to heart. And then basically you can read one of your criteria. It's like, okay, you keep taking my lamp off, but one of my criteria is that we need to have a lamp in every room. So that, so then you kind of move ahead. We played, I think, the first day we did like 4 scenarios. Then we played it again the next day, did another 6 scenarios. So it's really neat. And then yesterday I had friends over, and we ended up playing a 4-player Crokinole. So I bought a Crokinole board in a yard sale a month ago or so. And then it came like it was just the board. There wasn't a little disc. So I ordered the disc online from Crokinole, Canada. So I got the disc, and it was a set of 4. So then you can play up to 4 players. And it's, because when it's me and Lee playing, we have played over a dozen times, and I have lost drastically every time. I cannot beat Lee. Unless we're playing like more than 2 players. If we're playing 3 or 4 players, then it's not a problem. So I don't know why. But I didn't win last time, but we played it with them. And it's kind of interesting, like, because you got like different ring. It almost looks like a bullseye thing. You got the thing in the middle and the bigger circle and the bigger circle. But there's these little posts around the smaller circle. And you're trying to get your disc flicked into the inner circle, but you also, because that's worth more points there. But you have to hit the other discs if there's other player discs on the board. And it's one of those like, okay, I'm going to hit that one. And either you go way too far and you've just flicked yourself off, or you haven't reached anything, and if you don't hit anything, your disc is eliminated. It just comes off. Or be like, I'm aiming for this, and then I'll accidentally hit, like, not even close. Like, it's just like, it's a satisfying game to play. It's just so neat and satisfying to play. And then we played it with my friends, and they're like, what is this? It's like Crokinole, which is a really old Canadian game.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we need this. We need to get our own copy of this. So, and the one drawback with Crokinole is it's this big wooden board. So for storage-wise, it's very cumbersome. A lot of people kind of have it on display on their wall, which is what I do when we're not using it. It's kind of up on the ledge as almost like as a decoration, but it's a neat, satisfying game to play. So then I think that's on their wish list now, but it was a lot of fun. All right, so I guess let's get into this list. So Carla, what would you recommend for somebody who's like, oh, let's play Monopoly?
Well, I have one little honorable mention, just because it was actually my 10, but I think it needs to be mentioned, and that's Monopoly Deal. Now, if you've never played this is just a card game, and I've played this like years and years ago, but it's like almost a gamery game. Like it's really good. Like you have all different kinds of, you're still trying to build up the 3 sets of properties, but the way you do it is so neat because there's cards that have 2 different properties on each end, so you can use that as a different one. There's cards that will steal a whole set of properties from other people. You can get people to pay you. There's all kinds of things in this game, and I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, but it's such a cheap game. If you're looking for a quick card game, and if you ever liked anything about Monopoly, just pick this one up and give it a try. It's actually really good. It's a really decent game. But one other thing I just have to mention that is on tons of the Monopoly killer lists. I have it, but I have yet to play it. And maybe it's on your list. I don't remember if you've played it, but that's Acquire. I really want to try this one. It's an old game. I think it's from early 70s, I believe.
Think so.
So it's not much newer than Monopoly. Mind you, that one's quite old, but still, it's supposed to be really good, and it looks really dry and boring, but it's supposed to be really fun. So that one isn't on my list, but I do have it, and I do intend to play it at some point. Now, my number 9, this game I actually culled, and the only reason I culled it was because nobody around me liked it, and I regret it now, because one day I will find someone who likes this game because I really liked it. And I have to remember, don't cull games just because you can't find people to play. One day there will be someone. One day. And
they'll come.
They will come. Bring the games. Yeah. And they will come. So that game is Racoon Tycoon, made in 2018 by Glenn Drover. Now, it's a very simple type of game, but it's what I find that I relate it to Monopoly is most of my games that are on my list have an economic feel to them. I feel like Monopoly was the economic part of it. I know there's trading and all kinds of things, but that was the base of it for me, was having the most money. And that's what this one does, is whoever has the most money at the end of the game wins. And so what you're doing is you start with these trading cards in your hand. And on your turn, you can trade. So you will play a card and you will get, or sorry, they're not trading cards. They're, I guess you get kind of an income. You play this card and you'll get different types of resources. So you might get a wine bottle, you might get some wheat or stone or whatnot. And you can only have a certain amount of resources. I can't remember the number now. I think it's around 12. Mm-hmm. But once you get, and as soon as you acquire one, the price of it goes down, I believe.
So no, it goes up one from the card.
Oh, it goes up when you grab one. It's when you sell them. That's when they go down. Right. So it's this moving market that is really cool in this because, so say I take a weed, a stone, and a bottle of wine or whatever it's called. And then those would all go up, I guess, because they're in demand maybe. And then, so what you're trying to do is gather a bunch as you see them going up and you're like, oh, I got to sell them so I can get a bunch of money because then I want to buy like another building. You can buy these little buildings as well, which are sometimes like a little engine builder. Sometimes some are just straight points at the end, but it's quite neat. And the theme of it is it's all animals and it's like all these different types of railroads, but like one is like the fat cat and it's these beautiful art of these cats. And then there's like obviously a raccoon one. I think there's a fox line and the art is just gorgeous on this. I don't know if I said it was made in 2018 by Glenn Drover, but he has also designed other games similar to it. There's one called Lizard Wizard that is the same basic game of this, but with different art. I prefer this theme with the animals because it's so cute. But another thing you can do is you can buy certain railroads that will add on to what you already have. So if I have like the Fat Cat Railroad, this one will add some more points onto it. Just gives you a couple extra, but you have to pay resources for that one. But the buying and selling of the resources is so neat because you can see what everybody has. Like it's open to see what resources you have. So you know, okay, they've got a bunch of that. They're going to sell it right away. I'm just going to sell these 2 so I can drop it in price. So they're not going to make a whole bunch of money. You don't get to see everyone's money. That's hidden. It is paper money, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's a little bit thicker. Like it's like almost cardboardish, almost like it's just really thick paper. And I see why they had to do it. Because if you have coins in front of you, you can see what people have. But with the money, you can't always tell what they have, right? Because you just flip it. But it's such a neat game. And yeah, my family didn't really love it. My gaming group didn't really love it, but it's a really good game. And that's my number 9, Racoon Tycoon.
That is a good game. I enjoyed that one. It's just so interesting because the resources you pick up never matches really the resources that go up in price. And then you're kind of accumulating, say, okay, I'm going to get more of these bottles so that I can sell it and get like so much money for it because it's nice and high. And then the other player goes and sells it and then brings the price down. It's like, darn it. It's like, so it is. Yeah, it's neat. It's satisfying. Plus, you have like that set collection thing that you're going as well. It's like, didn't want you to get that card.
You get to auction off each of the railroads. I forgot about that. So you can choose to either use one of your cards to get resources, then you get another one back, or you can auction off like one of the railroads. So you get first crack and then it goes around and whoever wins it gets to keep it. And if you, as if it was your turn, did not get one, you get to do another turn. So you could just like keep auctioning these off till everyone's out of money and then you get one really cheap. But it's like a set collection thing. So if I see the foxes are up and she's got 2, I'm not going to let her get it, right? Yeah. So there's so much into this. Like
it's a very it has a lot of depth, really. Yeah. It's a neat game. I really like it. I
just regret selling it now. Darn
You'll have to come play my copy.
Okay, yeah. Good. That's good.
All right. My number 9 is our first crossover.
Really?
Because my number 9 is Monopoly Deal. That one was created in 2014. There was no publisher or designers assigned to it. But Monopoly Deal has like the heart of Monopoly, but in a card game version of it. And it kind of takes away the stuff that people don't like about Monopoly, like taking so long and then having to land on the right spot to get what you need and that sort of stuff. And it puts it in a card version. And it's neat because you got to have money, because if you end up having to pay rent, and if you don't have the money to pay rent, then you got to give up your building or mortgage them and that sort of stuff, like in Monopoly. But you can have all the money you want in your hand, and it doesn't count unless you've put them down into your bank. So you have these cards that are money cards, like, oh, this is great, I'll put this, because you also can't make change. So if it's like, okay, well, you got to pay me like this much, and it's like, well, I didn't keep any small bills, I only have these big ones, like, well, guess I'll just take this, thank you very much, and then they get to collect that money. And you're playing these different properties, and there's the ones that can be two different ones, and you're trying to create these sets. And I think as you're trying to have 3 complete set to win. But then you could be like getting close, and then all of a sudden they play a card that allows them to take all of your properties of one color, and it's like, oh, you bastard. So it definitely has that, like, the little mean element that you can get a little bit in Monopoly has that in this game. I think because of that, Lee was not a fan, but the kids were. And it's just such, like, this is the only Monopoly game I have in my collection. But it's just so satisfying, and it's quick and it's fun, and I really like it. And that's my number 9 Monopoly deal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good choice. All right, my number 8 is made in 2012 by Masao Suganama, and that's Machi Koro. Now, there's other games made after this that I find are almost better, but this one I feel like would be a good step for Monopoly. Now, it doesn't have the exact feel, whereas like you're building, like you're set collecting, there's not really any of that, but it does have the feel of the money. The money is really important. People can steal it. So you kind of almost want to spend it each round, but you are trying to build all these, or flip all these buildings that you have. And I think you have 6. I haven't played it for a while. 6
Depends if you have like an expansion or not. True. I think the base game comes with 4, and then different expansion will add extra ones.
Yeah, it must have an expansion or something. I haven't played Machi Koro 2 yet, but this is the first one. And so you have these buildings that you need to flip. But in order to do that, you have to pay money to flip them. But in order to get money, you have to build up this whole tableau of different cards, because how you play is you roll the dice on your turn. And whatever the dice says, so if you roll a 2 and a 3, you will get to choose your 5. Now I'm getting this mixed up with Space Base. Can you choose a 2 and a 3 building in Machi Koro?
No, with this one is you get to decide if you're going to roll 1 or 2 dice. If you've unlocked a second dice.
Right. Then it's the double number that's on there. So at first you're just rolling 1 dice. So say I roll a 4. And if I have a building that is a number 4 and it gives me money, I get to take it. Depending on the color of the building, if other people have a 4 and it's the color that if I roll, they get to take something, then they will also get something. Now, some of the cards are red, and those are evil cards, because if other people roll something, they have to give me something. So it's quite not really a push your luck game. There's a lot of luck in it, I'm going to say. But it's so interesting because, you know, you've got 5 buildings flipped, and you need to get that 6th one flipped, and everybody's just taking your money when they choose, you know, like, I'm going to get her money, because you always have to pay it before you collect your money. So, which is neat too, because if they're like, oh, you owe me $8, well, I have none. Oh, well, then too bad. But then I get to collect my money from my roll myself, and then they don't get that. So it's kind of neat that way. But the last building is quite expensive. So you have to have built up a big chunk of money, which you typically can't do in one turn unless you have some of these really cool buildings and you have a bunch of them built up, because they will multiply. If I have a building that gives me $5 and I have 8 of them, well, and I roll that, I'm going to get $40, which you never have that many, but just for an example. Now it's a simple game as well. Like, it's quite easy to learn. I remember I picked it up used and played it with my family, and my husband didn't win, and we played again. He's like, oh, we got to play it again. And we literally had to play it until he won. So it took, I think, 4 or 5 games for him to win. He's like, 1 more, let's go. I got to get this game. I got to win. And then I ended up buying the Legacy, or was it Machi Koro Legacy, so we played through that as a family, and I wouldn't, it wasn't as fun as just the main game. Like, there were some neat things in it, but there were some things that were kind of, I don't know, all right. It wasn't my favorite, but Machi Koro, it's a good family game, and I feel like it would be a good replacement for Monopoly. That's my number 8.
Nice. Yeah, I do like Machi Koro. My number 8 is another card game, and that's Cover Your Assets. It was created in 2011 by Brent and Jeffrey Beck from the Grandpa Beck series. This one is so satisfying to play because you have the cards and you're trying to set like a set of assets that you would play in front of you. And then if, let's say, you've played like 2 cars and they're worth so much, but if one other player on their turn, you can either add a set to your pile in front of you, and there are different things are worth more, or you can draw from the middle, or you can challenge another person's pile. And every time you add, like, let's say I do a card, they're up and down, and then if I add then like different things, it would go side to side and then up and down and side to side, so, or whatever. So you kind of build up your asset, but having like taking on something small, like if I had a card and it's worth a lot, and then I was like, quick, I'm going to put this on top of it and it's worth a lot less. They can't challenge my car because it's not on top of the pile. They'd have to challenge the latest asset I got. So it protects your asset, so you're covering your asset. Hence the name, I think. So and then I was like, oh, you just got the car. That's a nice car you've got there. So I'm going to challenge it, and then I'm going to play a card of a car myself. And then the other player can either play a car as well. Says, no, I'm keeping it. And then they play a car. It's like, yeah, well, I have a wild silver, so I'm going to put a silver. It's like, yeah, well, nice luck. I still have another car, so I'm going to play another card to keep my asset. It's like, okay, well, I also have a gold. And then be like, oh, if they're out of cards and I've kind of built that battle thing, then I would get to take all of those cards that got played plus their car pile and put it on top of my pile. Now this pile is getting quite thick and it's all worth money, and then it kind of builds up the value of it. Now it's like a lot more attractive, and they might get challenged some more. So I'm going to want to put something on top of this to cover it up soon because it's worth so much points now. But if they had like another card, it's like, yeah, but I do have a gold, then they get to take all of those extra cards, add it to their asset and increase the value. And then I wasn't successful in stealing it. It's interesting. It is so interesting. It's very simple to play. If you get, like, it can feel mean, right? So I know we played it with the kids one time, and my one kid was like, I hate this. It's like, you guys are so mean. I was like, okay. So it's not for everyone because of that aspect of it. But it was just so neat and satisfying. And you're playing until like the deck is gone. And then you tally up the total money of assets that you've accumulated. And whoever has the most money win. It's just satisfying. It kind of has that neat, like, it kind of plays on like the bit of the mean element of Monopoly, but it has that money greed theme to it. So I think that works well for that. So that's my number 8, Cover Your Assets.
Yeah, that's a good one. Awesome. My number 7 is Steam Park, made in 2013 by Aureliano Buafino, Lorenzo Silva, and Tuki Sorrentino. Now, this one is a completely different theme, but it's so neat. You are trying to build this steampunk theme park. And by doing that, you roll a whole bunch of dice, and you get all these different symbols on the dice. So you might get something that it will give you income, or something that will give you these little people, and you get to keep rolling as long as you want until you get the combination that you want. Now, you don't have forever, because whoever's first, and like they're fine with their dice, they get to grab a card in the middle, and then whoever's second grabs another one, and then so on. And the first card are usually the best because they might not give you as many actions, but then they let you clean up some of the robot dirt, which is neat because every time you're adding stuff to your theme park, you're making like pollution, you're causing dirt. So you need to clean that up somehow. Now, if you're the last person, I believe you don't get to clean any up, but you get more actions. So there's like a give and take. Now, all you're doing is adding these little cardboard 3D, which is so cool because they're very colorful. You're adding them to this little grid that you have in front of you. And there's certain rules for them. They can't touch each other. I believe they can maybe touch diagonally. I haven't played for a little while, but it's so neat. And then you have to draw from a bag after, if you've taken that action with your dice of like the little people, and you get to draw and try to get the colors to match what the rides are on your board. Now, there are some that you can still put on there that they can ride and you can get money from them or points, but then they go away. But if you can get the right color pulled out of the bag, because then you add to the bag as well. Like there's just so much going on, but it's the economy of it that I feel like is the replacement, and the building up of buildings. It's not so much, you're not trading or doing anything of that, and you're just kind of building your own thing, but it's still, you're trying to make the best, like you need to have the best economy on your own. Now this one out of all the games is probably maybe the most far-fetched, I'd say, out of all the ones I've picked than Monopoly, but it's still such a unique, cool game, and it's available at our Dollarama here in
insane.
Canada.
$5.
I actually have the game. I haven't picked it up, but it was like I bought it used months and months and months ago, but a friend of mine has one anyway that we've been playing, so. And I think you have one coming now too.
Yeah.
Don't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really cool game and just a unique theme, but just building up your theme park is so cool. And that's my number 7, theme park.
Nice. I'm excited to try this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, $5 at Dollarama. That's insane. I don't know what's going on with Dollarama. They're getting so many great games for $5.
Yeah.
So what? And I mean, like in the gaming community, we're all like, oh my god, at this location, quick, go It's like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
and then you see people on the used market trying to sell some of these games for like $30, and you're like, hold up, we know where you got that from.
Well, I mean, I just bought like the Downforce, which was another Dollarama game for $5, but I bought mine used copy 30 because they retail at 40 and they're worth that. That's a good game.
So,
but
the other thing, it's brought the value down for people selling, which is unfortunate. But I
guess keep your games; they were good anyways. Yeah. All right, my number 7 is Oh My Goods, and that was created in 2015 by Alexander Pfister, and I just think that the whole economic side of Monopoly, Oh My Goods, is neat about that. Like, and kind of getting the different, and then there's like, Oh My Goods is really interesting because it has like the multi-use cards. So you have the cards, the market that'll be flipping up, and there's a little sun symbol on some of them. And then you kind of flip up until that shows up, and then that ends the morning market. And then you have these resources. And it's like, okay, so based on what you see here and what do you have in your cards, what do you want to accomplish? And you kind of at the beginning picked a card that you want to try to build on. And then you have the ones you've already accumulated that'll have these different resources. And there's like an engine building to it. So, okay, well, I've been building this over here, but I can convert that over here into this, and that's going to give me more value. So then that's great. And then there's these couple resources, and I'm hoping they'll show up in the evening market. But if not, I do have them in my hand. So I don't have to go sloppy here. I'm going to go all in. And then you're going to like really dedicate, and you kind of set your action up to be like, I'm going to kind of where you need everything, but then you get the most out of your action. Otherwise, you could be like, I don't know if it's going to come up. So I'm going to go cautious and I'll be sloppy. And you only need, like, you don't need to use all the resources required. You can drop one. And like, cause hopefully like at this point, it's like, I'm just going to take a cautious approach to it. And it has like that push your luck thing to it, but it's definitely an economic game. And then you do flip the evening market until the sun comes up and be like, whew, okay, good thing I went sloppy because it didn't come up. Or it's like, it came up, I could have gone and pushed a bit more and then make a better move out of this. But oh well, or maybe you were going all in and it never came up, and it's like, oh no, I can't. That messed it up. But it is such a neat, interesting game. It's just a simple, small card game, but it's deep, and it's a fun game. I love it, and that's number 7. Oh my goods!
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't even think of that one to put on my list, but good one. All right, my number 6 is made in 2018 by Ivan Lashin, and that's Smartphone Inc. Now, this one, as soon as I played it the first time, I was like, oh, this will replace Monopoly for sure. Now, it's totally economic, this one. You're trying to make the most money selling cell phones. And how you do that is you have to price them on your turn. And how you're doing these actions is you have these little cards that you have to overlap. And however you do it, whatever's showing at the end, those are the actions you're going to take. Now, that part in itself is such a cool puzzle because you can do all kinds of things. You can get a whole bunch of like technology cubes to put on and build up your technology, or you can make it so your phones are really cheap. Cherry does that all the time. She tries to outprice me. But she makes her phones really cheap. And then you can do things like, I think there's another one that will help you move across the board because there's all different areas. It's a big map on the board where you all start in different areas, and then you kind of slowly will move across and have presence in each of these areas. Now, that part is tricky too, because you want to develop there and leave little houses, or I can't remember what they're called, that you're actually leaving there. But because then when you go to sell them at the end, or at the end of the round, you can only sell if on your turn, and there's a turn order thing too, because I think it's the lower you priced your phones, the first in turn order you get. So if you price them really cheap, you can sell them before everybody else. So you might have taken up all these spots and have sold the cell phones in this one area and no one else can sell them there. And you're like, well, yeah, it was cheaper, so too bad. But you also have to have the technology in order to have sold them, because there's different ways you can sell them in each area. It's such a neat game because you have to develop your technology. You have to, in order to sell, and you have to price them at a decent amount, but you can also price them high. If no one's in that area and you're the only one who can sell, you can price them super high and sell them. Oh, there's just so much going on in this game. And I've played it at a 4-player, I think the first time I played. And since then, I think I've only played 2, but I feel like it's a better higher player count, meaning higher, like 3, 4. There is different board for 2 players, which is nice, so they do scale it down. But it's such a neat game, and that's my number 6, Smartphone Inc.
That's a good pick. My number 6 is a crossover again. Right. And this is Machi Koro, created in 2012 by Masao Suganuma. And it's a neat economic game. And this is where, like with the Monopoly, you roll the dice to see where you land and what you get. And that has that feel to it as well. You roll the dice, see what you can activate. Now, in the beginning, you start with 2 cards. So you roll the dice, you rolled a 5, and then it's like, oh, great, I didn't get anything. So until you acquire more cards and you build it up, and then all of a sudden you'll roll, say, okay, I'm getting all these good ones. And I was like, okay, I think it's time that we develop this one so I can get my second dice, and then we can start getting more cards and do more things, and then you get bigger things. And there's the one, when you roll on your turn and you activate that number, then you get the resource, the money for it. Or if somebody else rolls it on your turn, you get the money for it. But then there's the red cards that just messes everything up. And we used to play with the kids. They loved it when they were little. They loved this one. And like when we first got into the hobby, and they're like preteens, and so we play this one all the time. That's the one they wanted to play. But they would get so mad at each other over the red cards, and they would always go and buy the red cards right away, and then get so mad. So I was like, okay, fine, we'll play it, but no red cards. It has that. Like that little bit of the mean element. It's like, okay, oh, great, you rolled this. Well, you went to my cafe, so now you need to give me this. And which is like the whole rent portion of Monopoly. It's just neat. Yeah. But yeah, so that was my number 6, Machi Koro.
Awesome. So that's one crossover so far. There's another
two
one coming. Two.
Because Monopoly
right.
Deal, yeah.
So there's another one coming up. Not this one, but... so my number 5 is Sheriff of Nottingham, made in 2014 by Sergio Halibin. Now this one is another unique game, and it's so funny, and you kind of have to play it with the right people because there's a lot of bribing and negotiating involved in this. And what you're trying to do is you are trying to take your goods across the border. Now, how you do that is you have a hand of cards, and you may want to bring 3 cheese across the border. Now, in your hand, you might only actually have 1, and you've stuck something else in there that you're just trying to get across. Could be some sort of... now, I have the expansion, so I'm going to get confused if this is the expansion or the base, but you might be trying to transport a person across. And now... It's heavy cheese, it's big cheese. But, so you put these cards in and you stick them in this little velvet envelope kind of thing. You snap it shut and you slide it across the table to the, what's the guy called? The sheriff. The sheriff, of course. So there's always one person as the sheriff and you take turns. And so you say to the sheriff, I'm bringing 3 cheese across. And he looks at you and he's like, I think you're lying. And you're like, well, how about $5 to make it easier? And then he knows or he thinks for sure you're lying, right? But maybe you're not lying. Maybe you're bluffing so that he does open it. Because if he's like, you're lying, I'm not taking the bribe, opens the envelope or your little bag and there is 3 cheese, well, he has to pay. I can't remember what he has to pay you, but so it's kind of like a real like bluffing thing. Now you totally could have been like trying to cheat, or not cheat, but like trying to sneak across the border, other things. And he was like, okay, now last time I remember what you did to me. You totally said you tried to bribe me, but it was actually right. So I'm just going to let it go. And then all of a sudden you snuck across this person who's worth a whole bunch of points at the end. And you're like, yeah. So it's all these different things. And then you can also like make deals like, okay, if you let me across this time, I'll let you across when it's my turn. And then you can totally just back out of what you said. Like it's all about lying and cheating and just trying to convince people. And it's so funny because you're just like, I know how you're super suspicious of people and like crime games and stuff. Well, this one, it's always like, are you lying or telling the truth? And when I play with my kids once, I can tell when they're lying. So it was pretty easy to get them. Now I don't know as adults that I would be able to like read them as well, but it's a fun game and I haven't played it in a long time, but I really want to play this one again. Yeah, it's not my gaming group. They didn't really, well, actually, I don't think we've tried it with Ashley, but Cherry didn't really like it. Oh, but really? I just like the, trying to convince someone, the negotiating and all this different things. And that's, my number 5, Sheriff of Nottingham.
That's a good pick. I remember playing with Lee the first time and then be like, oh, he's telling the truth. And then all of a sudden, oh, you think you know a guy? Yeah. it's neat. And then playing with the kids, they was like, okay, why are you so good at lying? Like, what else are you lying about? But yeah, no, it's a neat game. My number...
If he does catch you and you were lying, I think you have to give up the goods or something.
Yeah,
so
it goes away and then there's
there are consequences.
For sure.
Anyway.
Okay, my number 5 is Subdivision, which was created in 2014 by Lucas Hedgren. And what I like about this one is like you're with the monopolies, or you're acquiring these different places and you're trying to get them to be worth more and then add houses and then hopefully get all the way up to a motel and, like kind of make them worth a lot more. And you do a little bit of the same thing with Subdivision. So you have this map, you roll the dice and it says, okay, you can build on a blue space. And then it's like, okay, so I got this and that blue space over here. And then I'm going to start adding a school here. And then it's like, okay, great. And I'm going to add this here and it's going to be worth more. So it has that city building element to it. And then with Sneak 2 is like, okay, well, I'm going to put a second level on my school, so now it's worth more. So it's kind of like you're adding the houses. It's like, okay, now I got a third level, now it's going to worth all this point, and then you're kind of adding. And it's just so satisfying to create your city in Subdivision, or your Subdivision. But it's just like, and then trying to get them to be worth more. I really enjoy this game. And I really like that aspect of it. And then that whole, because it's worth more, and then you kind of cost you money. So you got that economic version as well. So that is my number 5, Subdivision.
That's a really good one. I have this and Suburbia. I know you prefer this one.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer Suburbia, and I can't believe I didn't even include it on this list. Like, that would have been such a good one for me to include, but Subdivision is really good as well. So good choice. All right, my number 4 is my first crossover that you have listed. Now, can you take a guess at what you think it would be?
Cover Your Assets.
Yes.
Yeah!
Cover Your Assets. I love this game. We play this with family, and we played it with my daughter's boyfriend, and he doesn't typically love games. Like, he'll play them when we play, and he does have fun, but he loved this game. She's like, I gotta get a copy of this one. If you can find a game he loves, she's like, I gotta get it. So he just had a kick out of this one, especially stealing from Hannah was the fun part. And she's like, what? Why are you picking on me? But it's so fun, and like how you said, it can be mean, but it's still like, I mean, it is a decent length game. Like, I'd say it goes about 45-ish, maybe half hour, 45, depending how fast you're playing or how many people you have. But it's so fun, and it's such a unique type of card game where, you know, you can still build up all these assets and then have a bunch of good ones underneath. But then as people slowly start taking them, you're like, oh no, they're getting down to my big collection there. But yeah, it's awesome. And that's my number 4, Cover Your Assets.
Nice. My number 4 is Chinatown, created in 1999 by Karsten Hartwig. And, you know, like, because in Monopoly, you can negotiate. It's like, okay, so I see that you've picked this one up, and I would really like to get that one from you. How about if I gave you these 2 properties, and then we swap? And when we would play, I would, like, never trade. And my brother would get so mad. You're supposed to trade in this game. It's like, every time I trade, I lose. I'm not trading. And Chinatown, that's a negotiation game. It's a trading game. That's the whole thing of it, right? So you have all these locations. There's these different buildings, and or kind of segments, and then there's all these numbers on there. And you get handed these cards, and then those are what you have. It's like, okay, great. Well, I have this one, and that one. And you're trying to create clusters so that you can add businesses. So if you build a flower shop, and you have a flower shop that's 1 square, it gives you this much. But if you're able to add a second one, then it's going to give you more. And then if you add a third flower shop, so your flower shop is bigger because I'll have to share sides, then it's going to give you more. And then if you build it to its max capacity, then it's going to give you, like, the price that it provides jumps right up, right? So you're trying to get enough properties in clusters to be able to build your business so you can get the most value. And then so you're trading is like, ooh, I see you got number 33 here. Well, I have 31, which is only really kind of 1 away. So then you're kind of setting yourself up. So when those other numbers come in, you can make something good here. I'm willing to give you my number 31 if you give me 22 over here. It's like, yeah, but 22 gives you, like, and it's like, well, how about if I add a little bit of money to this deal? It's like, how would you consider that? Like, so that whole trading and negotiation, that's Chinatown. That Chinatown is like pure trading and negotiating and trying to build up your business to get the most money. And I think that would just work so well for that. So that's my number 4, Chinatown.
Well, that's my number 3, Chinatown.
Oh, nice.
Wow, we've got 3 already.
That's awesome. 4. That's our 4th one.
Oh, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's this one here. That's something. That's the most I think we've ever had in Crokinole.
Yeah. Well, and I know there's more coming, so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you said it all with Chinatown. I love it. It's fun, the negotiating, the thinking you're getting screwed, looking at how much are they going to make on that? Oh, well, I'm going to make this much, so maybe it's worth it. And then knowing that you have a card or like a business that they really want, so you have some like trading power sort of. Like there's all kinds of things you can do with this one. But yeah, such a good game.
Good. Well, my number 3 is similar genre, and that's Foundation of Rome, created in 2022 by Emerson Masucci. And it just has a very similar feel to it. Now, you're not given cards for the location. You will bid on them because you'll buy them because they come up. And as somebody buys something, everything slides down so they become more affordable. So it's like, okay, I really want that location, but if I wait till it gets really cheap, that'd be good. But maybe he would want that location too, so I don't want to wait too long. But he doesn't have a whole lot of money right now, so maybe I could get, so there's a whole thinking about it with that one. And what's neat with it is you have all these buildings that you can add onto the board, and it's like, okay, great, well, I'm going to build this, and then I'm going to build that. And then what gets interesting and what kind of reminds me of the Monopoly is at some point to be like, okay, well, I'm going to put this, and I make so much out of you because you built this around me. So it's not like rent where you're physically taking the money away from it, but you're kind of gaining yourself from what the other people are doing around you, and then you're kind of tapping in onto that. It's like, okay, and I'm going to put this, and look at all the population I just got. And I was like, well, I'm going to put this building that's going to score for every population that's around me. So then it's like, oh man, I just helped you out a lot then. So the whole scoring and is so interesting, like, because you'll have the buildings that'll give you the population, you have the buildings that'll give you the money, and then you have all these buildings that's going to give you points and get you to score on what's around. And it's like, I'm going to add this there, and then like, so how you put everything in. But some of them is like, it's going to be worth so much, but I need to have 6 together. So then you also have that real estate portion that you're need to kind of keep in mind and trying to create these clusters as well. And I think this is a neat game. It's not one that I own. It's big. This game is massive. It takes a whole cubby and a calyx, and it's pricey. It has like a retail price of $300. So I don't intend to buy this one, but I do like it, and I like to play it. And it plays fairly quickly, like 45 minutes. So it's a fairly simple, quick game, which means it's one that's easy to get to the table and play, and with a wide variety of people. So there's a lot of benefits to it. But yeah, it's neat. So that's my number 3, Foundations of Rome.
Yeah, I completely forgot about this one when making my list. This would have made my list as well. Good one. All right, my number 2 is Lords of Vegas, made in 2010 by James Ernest and Franz Vowinkle. I don't know if Vowinkle. I can barely read my own writing. This one was another one that when I played it, I was like, this easily replaces Monopoly for me. Now, this one, you are building up casinos, and how you do that is you do start with some land. So you have just these little like bingo chips almost that you start, and you'll put on this grid that you all start with. And on your turn, you flip a card and it'll show a property. And that those will get paid out, those colors, basically. Now, that's if you own the casino. If you just have the land, you don't get paid out, or you get paid out a small amount. But you can, once you've gained more money, you can turn them into casinos, and you can choose which color you want of the casino. And you'll put this little square, I'm going to say square ring, but that doesn't make sense. It's a hollow square that you will put around the property that you just turned into a casino. Now, you might have a few that are attached, so you've built kind of a bigger one. Now, people can build right beside you, and they can overtake yours. And so how you're building these is you put a dice there. Now, say I have like a 4, and I put a 4 there, and a 2 and a 1, and that's my little casino. I've made it all one color. And somebody has a 6 next to it, but they have it a different color. Well, they can do something that's called, now I can't remember if it's the renovating, or there's different things you can do, but they can pay to roll all the dice. They can change their casino to your color. And if they have a 6, well, now they are in charge of that casino because they have the highest die that is in there. Another thing they could do is if, say, they only had a 2 and they switched it to your color, well, you'd be owning it, but then they can renovate, I believe it's called. So they'd have to pay for each one that's there, but then they can roll all the dice, and their dice might be the highest. It's kind of a gamble. Like, you never know if it's going to work. They might have had a few other properties as well, so that it gives them more chances. You can go to other people's casinos just to gamble for money, and you basically roll dice, and it just depends on what number you roll. And say you bet $200, you'll double it or triple it depending what you roll. You can do things like you can just build on a spot and just that nobody has actually owned yet, and just hope that it doesn't come up in the game. Or just it's going to help you with getting the majority in your casino. But as soon as that card comes up in the game, that person will own it. So that's kind of a risk thing too. There's different things. And the thing how you build points is every time the casinos pay out, you get to, whoever is in charge of the casino gets to build points. But how you take the points are interesting, because at the beginning they're like 1-to-1. And then all of a sudden the points start to jump 2, and then 3, and then 4. So if you've only got 3 points and you have to jump 4, you don't get to move ahead. So you have to keep building and building and building up your casinos, or you're not going to get to the high ends of the points, because once you need to get up 5, 6, 7, 8, you can never do it. You're never going to get up there on the board. It's such an interesting game because anything can flip at any time. So it's not like, somebody's just taking over and they're just going to run away with it, because then they have to have more in order to move up in points. And you can slowly catch up to them, and everyone can kind of gang up and start like chipping away at that casino. So it's really fun, and it's just a unique game that I've never seen anything like it since. And that's my number 2, Lords of Vegas.
I haven't played that one. It sounds interesting.
Really?
Though.
Oh, yeah. It's so cool.
Good. So my number 2 is Alhambra, created in 2003 by Dirk Henn. And what I like about Alhambra is it's like that buying the properties, right? So you have to collect the money to be able to purchase the different tiles that you're going to add to your village square. And you're trying to create like a variety of colors in your village square, because at some point you'll be scoring all the different colors that are out there, and you're trying to get the majority of some colors and that sort of stuff. And you're also trying to create the wall where it's kind of match up the wall, and where you put things are kind of limiting. But what's interesting with this one is you have 4 different types of currency. And when you go and draw the tiles, you have 4 different builders that you're going to be purchasing from, and they're all from different locations, and they want to be paid in their own currency. So it'd be like, oh, good, that one would be perfect. I want to buy that one. But he needs to be played in blue currency, because he's the blue builder, and I don't have enough of that blue currency yet. So you kind of have to concentrate on acquiring the money so that you have enough money to be able to purchase the tiles and add that to your, it is such a neat, satisfying game. Plus, what's interesting with it too is as you go through the currency card, at some point a card's going to come up, is like, Kate, you score. So you don't know when you're going to score. It's like, oh, we're scoring right now. Oh, geez, I wish I could have done more. It's like, okay, well then you score this. And then, so like you're preparing for this upcoming, and you score 3 times in this game. So there's 2 cards in the deck that'll be like, Kate, we score. It's like, again, okay, I'm more prepared this time. So like you score again. And then at the end of the game, you score like a final time. But it is just so interesting with acquiring the currency and trying to have the proper currency to purchase the tiles. And if you have the perfect number, because you can't make change, but if you have the perfect amount that matches up, then that gives you a perks that you can do. I can't remember if you get to buy more or what it gives you, but it gives you something. It's just so satisfying to play. So that's my number 2, Alhambra.
I can't believe I completely forgot about this one too. I love this game, and I've been thinking about it lately too. I want to get it to the table. Oh, I love it so much. It's such a good game. Good one. All right, my number 1 is Stockpile. This is made in 2015 by Brett Sobel and Seth Van Orden. This one is so fun. It's an inside trading stock game. But as boring as that sounds, it's just so cool. You all have some cards, and on each turn you have to add cards to this pile, because what you're trying to do is just have the most money at the end of the game, obviously. You start with like a player power, and now I have expansion, so I'm not sure which are our expansion, what our base game, but so you might be able to look at some of the insights throughout the game. Like you will have different things that'll show, okay, this one is going to go up, this one's going to go down, this one's going to go up, this one's going to go down, this one's going to stay the same, whatnot. But not everybody can see them. There'll be only a few that are visible. Now you might have the power that you can look at another one of those, so you know something else. So before I think you play your cards, or maybe it's right after, you get to either sell stock if you want, because if you know something's going to plummet, you can sell it so that you don't have to lose out on it. But you have cards in your hand that you're going to add to these piles. Now there's 4 piles, depending on player count, there might be more, but you will add them, you have to add one face up and then one face down. So you might add one face up that looks like it's like adding to this one color of stock, and then the next time when it comes to your turn, you might add something face down that is actually really booming that one, or it's like plummeting it, but you wanted people to think that it's going up, so you put that there. Then after everybody's placed their cards, you go kind of in turn order, but you kind of bid on how much you're going to pay for one of these piles of cards. So you might put like your little meeple on, say, like $2 or something, and then it goes around the table. Next person might really want that stack too, so they put it on one ahead of you, and you just keep going around until somebody has backed out, or they couldn't afford to do that, so they had to back out and go to another spot. Everybody will get a pile, but you might have got the pile that was really bad, and you could see a lot of bad things on it, and you're like, oh no, now I have all these cards. It's so cool. And you after that, then you do the moving all the stocks, because you'll place all the cards up, and like some will be going down, some will have busted completely, and some will have boomed that it like doubles all your shares of that stock, so you get to add them to another side of your board. And then it's such a neat game. I feel like this is the biggest replacement, because it's there's not really negotiating in it, but it's a huge economic game, and just the inside trading part is so cool. And just adding to the stacks, you do know, or if you can remember what some people have really, like I know they have tons in that one. I'm going to just like dump this one and try to like lower this one completely. It's so good. There's a couple little expansions that add to it so much. There's one that add these dice, and they will change the stocks each round like drastically, so things can just go up and down so fast that you have to like keep track of everything. There's one that adds commodities, so it's like cattle and things, and it adds like a set collection to the game as well, and those are really neat because you add those to the pile as well, and you can also see what people are trying to collect, so you're like, okay, I know I don't want them to have any more cows or oil or whatever. But it's such a good game, and that's my number one, Stockpile.
Stockpile is so good. That was on my list, but it didn't quite make the top 9 for the Monopoly list. So, but I do love this one. It's so satisfying to play. So my number 1 is a crossover.
Ooh, I know what it is.
Okay, what is it?
Smartphone Inc.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one's just so good. It's such a neat economic game. So it was created in 2018 by Ivan Lashin, and it's just the whole kind of building out kind of on the map wise. So then the more market you have access to, the more you can sell. But then it's also having the phone, having them priced well so that you can kind of sneak in the price of your phone. Unless you get better technology, because you know everybody's going to pay for an iPhone. So then you get the higher technology, and then you can set whatever price you want. And it is just so neat and satisfying to play. And I just recently bought myself a secondhand copy, so I've got that with the expansion. I haven't played the expansion, but it's funny because I bought it from my friend who had the game, and it was the person I played it the first time. Then I had another friend says, "Oh, if anybody has Smartphone Inc., I have the expansion for it. I'll just give it to you guys." So I was like, "Oh, I'll take that," and then I gave it to him. Then he sold me the game, so then it all comes back here now. So, but it's such a satisfying economic game to play. The board looks great, and the whole kind of mitigating like the product you're building so that you could try to get the most money out of it. I love it. That's my number one. Smartphone Inc.
Awesome. Yeah, that was the one I thought we would have a crossover on.
We had a lot of crossovers.
Yeah. The other one I thought maybe was Cover Your Assets and possibly Chinatown. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
5. That's
a lot. That's the most. It's funny because, I mean, we just finished doing our top 50 just earlier in the year. And in our top 50 games of all time, we didn't have a single crossover. Like, so I didn't have 5 in this one.
We had 1.
But it was not like your game was below the 50. The one that we would have.
I thought we had Viticulture.
Oh, maybe.
But like not in the same episode. I thought
maybe one.
1 or 2.
I can't remember where Viticulture ended for me. But yeah. But very little, if any. So, yeah, no, that's interesting. That was neat. All right, so next week is going to be episode 61, and we're going to do our top 9 things we like to see in a rule book. And I'm very peculiar with what I like in rule books, so I'm excited for this one. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Now, before we bring this to an end, Carla, where can we find you?
I'm at Instagram, Board Game Specialist, all one word, and I have a Facebook page called Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. What about you?
Now, we have a Discord channel, so be sure to join us for that, and we'll add the link in the comments. And that's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed the Discord. I'm also on Instagram as Mal's_boardgame_room. My YouTube channel is Mal's Board Game Room, and my Facebook page is Mal's Board Game Room. So, yeah, that was great to see everybody. Well, see everybody. We don't even know. It was great to see you, Carla.
Yeah, see you too.
And we'll tune in again next week. So, thanks for tuning in.
Bye for now. Thanks for listening.